All right, wonderful. And we are live.
Good morning and welcome to the Township of Cavan Monument Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. June 15th, 2023, and at 9 a.m. Call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Anyone like to make a motion?
Approval of the agenda. And then just a note that we will be discussing item 8.1 proposed draft heritage bylaws for review and discussion after item 6.
Yep.
So for a mover,
I'll move it.
thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. None. Closed session. There was no closed session. Approval of the minute. I had a chance to look at and somebody.
March 16th and May 12th minutes before you today. We can do one motion to approve both of those.
So can I have a motion to approve those? Seconder,
I'll second it.
Oh, I think Nancy had her hand up here. And then all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
business arising from the minute.
Nope, it would just be a conversation point. So if there's none, we can move on to item 8.1.
All right. 8.1. Proposed draft heritage bylaws for review and discussion. Really care to speak on this.
Thank you, Chairman Brandy. So with the agenda, there are 4 bylaws stipulated to committee members. The bylaws are an amending bylaws for 4 properties that were originally designated by the Village of Millbrook in 1985. So this is our second go around with a redo of our heritage bylaws. So if you remember back in March, we went to council with the first round of bylaws. And we had a public meeting and then there were comments, and then we took the bylaws back to council. We got approved. So this is our second installment. We've got several more to come. But with the 4 bylaws before you today, notice of our intention to repeal and replace has been circulated as per the requirements of the Ontario Heritage Act. So direct notice went to the individual property owners. The information has been posted on the township's website. There was a notice placed in the Millbrook Times, and we have identified or contacted the province to let them know what's happening. So through that circulation, we did get comments back from the that provided photographic evidence and some commentary that the chimneys on the property were in fact not original to the house itself. So they requested some amendments to the bylaw. So that has made the amendment and we've circulated to Ashley, our resident expert in terms of architectural characteristics. And so the bylaws are proposed today for your review and consideration, and we need a motion from the committee that you're open to the bylaws as presented, and we can take them to council, or if you get any changes, we can talk about that today and we'll make the changes. And then this is scheduled to go to council for information on June 26th, which means my report is due by Friday, and then finally it's final form by Monday. So it's sketched out, and I just need to fill in the details. So have you had a chance to review the information, and does anybody have comments or want to talk about it?
I think the important one was the comments made by Dave Preston at Veteran Street. And that has been corrected in the bylaw.
Specifically, if you want to, I can tell you that under section 6 of the schedule, the heritage attribute, we have removed the red brick symmetrical chimney that was the once gable peaks and rear gable chimney and the top 5 brick versus a depth of earthly. And then in section 5, statement of cultural heritage, value or interest, been added, a small covered porch was added to the main entrance along Fifth Street, as well as red brick symmetrical chimneys at the north and west gable peaks and rear gable chimney with the top 5 brick versus the depth of brickwork. So it's included in why it's of cultural value, but it has been removed from the heritage attributes.
Nicely done, more detail.
Question that I had circulated, and it was a technical term because we specify always about the property. And one of the anomalies or confusions that seem to be expressed by a lot of people is, I don't want my property designated. And so we've been constantly saying, and even at the public meeting that we had, it's to deal with the structure and it's to deal specifically with the exterior of the structure, not the interior. So my only comment was we're constantly still saying the property. Doesn't seem to be a clarification. The property is the address, but what we're talking about is the physical structure on the property, just so that people don't all of a sudden think that my property's been designated.
It is actually the property that is designated. So we received, I believe it was during the last term of the Mr. Hack committee, that in fact, our legal advice is that it is the entire property that is designated. Traditionally, though, in the bylaw, we are focusing on the exterior attributes of home. We have not yet designated the inside, and so we do give consideration to the entire property, but we focus on the structure itself. Your expertise.
Sure. So it all goes back to the Ontario Heritage Act. So that's how they define property. So it's like any, because this is a legal document, you have to go back to its original guidelines essentially. So if you're looking at something else where the Planning Act is applicable, you'd have to be looking at its definition. So I completely understand the confusion. That's just how it is defined in the Ontario Heritage Act. I think it's done that way for a few reasons, is that there is scenarios where interior is picked up under heritage attributes. The other item being too that landscape attributes can be picked up as well. So that's why they encapsulate everything as a property. And they do that too, because it goes back to the legal description of the property. So that picks up, what section is it? Section 3. So it's actually referring to part lot 9, part 10, not for any of them. But really what it comes down to is your heritage attributes at the end of the day. That's what's most important in a designation. So fortunately, it's just one of those things where one person into how you interpret property, but the intent is the focus is the building and any associated structures, with it being open enough to pick up landscape and interior, perhaps, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And if I could just add from a planning perspective, it's important, especially as we move forward with the changes, that people can now have accessory apartments and accessory buildings. When you have the entire property designated, it gives us a little I don't know, sort of a little more influence, I guess, in how that accessory building may look. So it is consistent with it of how with the heritage features of the dwelling. We also
Property part.
exactly just to make sure that we do, and I'm sure people would not do this, or most people don't do this, but you don't want to. Well, yeah, that's for this That's.
Yeah.
It was important that it be messy.
The climate. And realized myself this portion about the property. I wonder how many other people have not realized that. There hadn't been any other comments regarding
From staff, we have not received, to the best of my knowledge, we have not received any comments from property owners or members of the public. So the recommendation, just so the committee realizes that with the report that goes to council on 26, it will be for information, so it will include all of the bylaws with the schedule attached. We will not be passing the bylaws at that meeting. It will be presented to council for their consideration. And then again, if they have no comments or we don't receive anything else within the commenting period, we will finalize the bylaws and bring them back in August for final approval. We don't have a meeting in July, that's why it's.
I have a question. Can you be able to answer this? With regards to a house on Prince Street, and I do not know the number. It's the house that has been vacant for so long, owned by a woman in the state. So you know the whole thing.
Yes.
Everybody know the whole thing. My question is, somebody has purchased the house. They're, I understand, still in the mix with lawyers and state. Something is part of the state and the house being part of it. And I'm wondering, are people who have purchased the house aware of that? They must be aware that it is designated, that there's a plaque on it. But are they aware of the new bylaw in effect on the house?
Through you, Chairman Ramsey, to members of the committee, I'm not sure what them. Because if they are not illegal yet, they would. So they would. Well, we would have information for them if they are not the legal owners yet. They are the legal owners, they would have received this information. I can tell you that the lawyer who was representing the estate here is aware that it is a designated. Yes. And we will make every effort to convey the information when we become aware of who the new owner is.
I'm just curious as to whether everyone involved was aware that it was designated and under the new bylaws, that they understood what they were getting into.
Yeah, I don't know what they're aware of.
Mm.
And I can tell you that when properties change hands, in the olden days, what we used to get a lawyer request, which would, ask questions about is it not a public road, what is the zoning, is it designated, was there a building permit issued? Since title insurance has entered the market, the number of legal requests we get is significantly smaller than what we used to get. But we did put the notice of our intention to repeal place in the newspaper a number of times. It's posted on the township website. And we will continue to do that here at the rest of the process for these bylaws. But if anybody knows people and they want information, we are happy to provide it.
All right, we will, any more questions regarding the bylaws? And if not, we will move on to number 7. Report.
So before, I was gonna say, before we do that, if we can, so Karen, I'm just looking for your clarification. The draft before us has the red bricks identified. Do I need a motion to, as amended? Beautiful. So if the committee could please entertain a motion to support the 4 heritage bylaws as amended for 5 Prince Street to remove the chimneys from the section 5. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right one. Section 6, heritage attributes. So they're if you are in support of that, then a mover, a seconder, please. Thank you. And thank you, John. And all in favor? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you for accommodating my schedule.
So as the chair has identified, on to item.
So I think as part of your, thank you, Chair. I think as part of your package, you did receive reports from periods of September 1st to June 30th. There is a whole lot of change. The big items for us are landscaping, special equipment, materials, and contracted services. We do cover what those projects are as part of the work plan. So I would say get to that section. What I would like to tell everybody. We'll do sort of this, but we did receive funds from the Ontario Work or Young Canada Works. So the funding program that we received for Honor, we were allowed to apply to a second intake. We were waitlisted and then they accepted our application. So we have funds to add a new Connor. Our previous Connor has moved on to the city of London, fortunately for us, but fortunately for him. So we do have funds to hire a new Connor to Connor's original work plan had obviously these bylaws. There was a component that we included, but it was kind of a nice to have if he could get to it. And that was to create a guide for heritage property owners or new heritage property owners. So we had talked about perhaps maybe that's something that this new person could pick up. And then we could also look to their first priority would be to shepherd through all the remaining bylaws. But then we could look to, it's a year contract. So that we could look to have him perhaps develop this guidebook. And then the other thing we could look at is we have a number of properties that we identified a long time ago as culturally significant. So they are not designated, but they're culturally significant. The inventory has to be updated. There's probably some that really aren't relevant. There's a lot of barns, I think. So, and some of those barns may have fallen down in windstorms or they may, not be of any use. So we may have to update the inventory, but maybe that's the time for us to identify if these are properties that should go on the registry. We have a really tight timeline. I think Karen has kind of alluded to in previous meetings, and I think Ashley has too, that because of the new legislative changes that are coming through, I think if you go on a registry, you have only 2 years to designate it. This might be the opportunity for us to do that list of culturally significant buildings and determine if there's any that we really do want to protect. So this is kind of what we thought that this new position could do, and it is a year contract. So I just wanted to kind of make the community aware of it. If there's any other projects that you think this person could tackle other than what we've discussed.
Heritage Conservation District for the downtown.
I did think that might be something through chair to John. I think we'd have to get support from council on that, if I'm not mistaken, before we move forward with something like that. We would because that's a big project, as I know. So we could certainly put it on the list as something for them to do, but that is a big project. It would need council support, and it probably would take longer than a 1 year. So we have to be mindful, try and get as much done in the short time that we have this person, but certainly I can add that.
He can certainly look at the cost associated doing
Absolutely,
one. So
absolutely.
that Because I know that's something that the mayor had expressed to me was the cost.
The
time,
cost,
et cetera.
Yeah, he could research that.
Right,
Yeah, take a report to
Yeah.
council. Absolutely. Yeah.
there could be a lot of public involvement to
Yeah.
offset those costs.
If I could jump in about the Heritage District, so that was actually discussed a few years ago. We are fortunate that a lot of the downtown is already designated. So heritage districts are ideal when you have a scenario where you're almost in like a panic mode because you have nothing either listed or designated. So we're already like a step up because you have so many properties that are designated. Having actually been involved in doing a heritage district before, it is a huge undertaking. Huge. It is not a one person thing. You would be based, like, they can research and bring a report to council. I think that would be good, just so everyone's aware of the exact implications of it. But you would be looking at hiring at least one consultant to do it, and the team that would be undertaking that behind the scenes could be, 5 to 6 people, and it would be a number of years.
And are we subject to similar timelines? That, because of the change in legislation, like, are we subject to like a 2-year window? Maybe kind of a dumb question, but.
No, because it's like apples to oranges.
Okay.
So it's that 2-year timeline is just for anything that's what they list as listed properties. So it's making that transition from being identified to actually designated.
Okay. So we could always kind of just get that person to identify the costs and potential work plan so that we could see what's involved. And then, go from there. Do we bring it to council and ask if they want to move forward with it, or do we, just so we have it for our own information? Does that make sense?
It would be good too to have like someone look at, okay, what is your current scenario?
Yeah.
Does this application, I saw it in the paper too. It's like, does it actually make sense in our current scenario
Yeah.
of what we want to achieve, or are we better just pursuing our bylaws? And perhaps if there's a couple of, random buildings here and there that aren't listed or designated, identifying those and doing their bylaws.
Okay.
The other thing too is that a heritage district is like this big umbrella, so it's very broad. And there's room for interpretation, where you have a designation, it's very specific. So I've always felt that the designations are a lot stronger because there's less room for interpretation. But cost-wise, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. And you'll get this. What would be a good comparison is our downtown Millbrook design guidelines.
Yep.
That would be like a little tiny appendix. Like you would be getting this big honking documents and all, like they're fantastic. And in some applications, they make complete sense. But I think we're in a really good position that we have so many bylaws already in place, but it's still worth.
Well, the only reason, and this was mentioned that the region
Oh, okay.
was Holbert, for example, and Port Hope, they have 3 and they're going for their 4th. We have significant number of undesignated properties, the Tinney property, the Masonic Lodge, Home Hardware. There's a bunch of missing units that potentially, as much as planning would love to sit there and say, we would like to see, it's interpretations, and I've seen OMB hearings fighting over interpretations, and it goes a certain way, and before we know it, we can end up having some glass frontages that totally change the downtown core. And as much as we had good intentions in place, at the end of the day, if you've got a ruthless developer who's just going to maximize his square footage and cheap building costs, hey, you know what? There's nothing there in stone, so I'm going to do what I can do. And I've got the building code, I've met all those concerns, I've met planning's requirements, and in terms of aesthetics, that's just an interpretation. And I would love to just have something ironed by.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's Murphy's Law.
The one structure that isn't designated, that's the one they find, they do their
Yeah.
research, so.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just being strategic about making sure as much as our downtown can be designated, which I think most of the structures already are.
There's a fair number, but I think when you look at the broader Millbrook, when you get outside of the main block, it's.
It starts to get a little.
It gets a little sparser.
Yeah.
Right, and so I'm gonna be honest with the planning documents that we have in place now, our intention is to broaden out our commercial core a little bit, so. I understand, I'm also somewhat sympathetic because of the changes that the province has made in the planning world about our limitations in terms of site plan approval. For residential units that anything less than 10 units, we can't control site plan control. So, but at the same time, I think it might be worth the research, but council will. It needs to go through the process, and you need to be aware that official plan policies to permit us to do a conservation district. And right now in statute, I'm monitoring plan, there are policies that permit a conservation district in Millbrook, but nowhere else. So we will be doing a new official plan at some point in the future when the county gets their plan approved. So this may come up again as part of that process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if this person can put some hard costs and plans as to what's involved in front of the council, it makes it a lot easier to have the conversation, make a decision rather than just kind of generalizing, right? So
Maybe we're just one batch of costs, maybe 1 or 2, 3 scenarios. Because you were mentioning the volunteer aspect, right? So there might be other people who would want to be involved with that, so there's a historical society.
Yeah.
And the volunteers, so that would save the money. Right? I mean, you can't, that kind of presumes you're gonna get all ears, but I mean, inquiries can be made.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, that's my financial update. Let's get it.
You need an motion to accept
Yes, please.
Bridget's report. Seconder,
Sorry.
yep. All in favor?
Thank John.
Boy, now we can start talking.
No.
You got a microphone in the.
This sound absolutely.
The table, so I'm watching you.
And you're on the beach.
Yeah. This is true.
So, number 8, general business.
And I do have the work plan in front of you today, item 8.2.
Can we go through these, through chair?
Or does the committee have any, is there any updates from the last?
I think, just a note about the downtown mural and the existing mural restoration. So we reached out to the artist for the existing mural, reached out to the artist, John Lacey. So he is going to come and make some small upgrades to the existing mural, just kind of touch ups. He had given us the price. I think we had brought this to the committee in a previous meeting. He had given us a price and it was pretty very reasonable. So we did put it in the budget to have him come on an annual basis to just do touch ups to the existing mural. He's just waiting for the right day and when he's gonna have a window where he can come and do it. So I did touch base with him this week and he said he's kind of got it in his calendar to try and set some time aside. We also did have a brief conversation. We're going to do a follow-up meeting for the downtown girls. The new mural that we talked about how that needs to go at Stadium Park at the entrance to the trail. So Peter and Karen and I had met and kind of came up with a conceptual plan. I think what we kind of thought is, and this might be a bit repetitive, but I think we did talk about this at the last meeting, but it was a few months ago. So we talked about telling a story. So the background of the mural would be like a map of Millbrook. And Peter provided us with this map. Thank you very much, Peter. And we would have kind of little vignettes that would pop out and show pictures of heritage buildings and tell a story. So you would come as a newcomer to the area, you would come by train. So that would be part of one of them. You would get a job. So you'd probably have to stay at a hotel until you found a place to live. So we would show the hotel, we would find a job, we would show maybe some of the retail operations and then some agricultural vignettes to tie in that, you know, maybe owned a shop or maybe farmed the land or both. And then you became part of the community. So we thought we could tie in, you know, the fire hall, the old town hall. And you went to church, you went to school. So just kind of the day in life or a life in the area. That's kind of the concept we're working with. There's a lot to kind of put in a small space. So we're trying to figure out how best to do that. So our next step is to sit down with John Lacey and who did the mural downtown and to kind of flesh that out a little bit better.
So here's my memory, the whole thing. So the information about each one of these sites, is that going to be a QR code?
I think we're going to try and represent it visually if we can. It is a lot. Yeah, so it will probably require a QR code of some sort to be able to get full information.
Yeah, like you might have one sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then have more detail.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, you wouldn't write a bill with your.
We'll kind of put what we need or what we'd like. And, you know, Peter is extremely good at placing, like doing a concept plan.
Yeah.
Between the three of us, we might have something, but then we'll also look at John and see what because he ultimately is the artist and knows. Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anything like that?
No.
Okay.
That-
The other thing I just wanted to update the committee, we will be taking a report to council for the 2023 community improvement plan program. The 20 this one council did set aside funds in the budget. They had kind of established 25,000 is kind of their annual contribution. You know, every year they'll review it, but that's kind of what they've kind of earmarked. So this year, because we have the township wide CIP, we now have 2 CIP areas in addition to downtown Millbrook. So we have the urban fringe, which is just the outer parts of Millbrook that extend past the community core that's identified. So it kind of comes up here as far as the township. office and a little bit past, and the rural area. We also have a few extra programs. So now we have 17 programs in total. So there are some that are more suited to the rural area and the urban fringe. There's some that are more suited to downtown Millbrook. What we're recommending to council is that that we turn the program on for the two new areas. So the urban fringe and the rural area. Downtown Millbrook has had their CIP for the last 3 years. So there's been 3 intakes. And the reason for us to expand upon the CIP was to include the urban fringe and the rural area to allow them to experience that we'll be able to access some of those funds. So we thought this would obviously be an appropriate time for us to turn it on for those 2 new areas. So we'll be taking a report, full. Everybody updated what we're doing with that.
What's the bracketed 15,000 in red? What was that?
Where do you see? Oh, red. Oh, sorry. Yeah, actually, you know what, that I probably should have updated. We did receive funding from the Rural Economic Development from OMAPRA, the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Food and Rural Affairs. We applied to their Rural Economic Development Fund to actually write the plan, to hire a consultant to actually do the plan for us. So that's what that is.
Thank you, Bridget. Does anyone else have updates?
I don't have an update. I guess in the previous meeting, I asked if, I asked you if you would, whoever it was, who go to, the public works folks and find out about, like, for the First Light project.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
So the First Light, so, I mean, I think background research and stuff, that's something, but, really, I really need to know if they can contact, if we can get those at cost, whatever. Otherwise, we just tell me who to talk to. So, I got it learned, but it's just around protocol.
Yeah, no. Sorry, it totally slipped my mind, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, but
Just don't be afraid to nudge.
okay.
So that.
Okay.
Slap in the face, and just refresh my memory, we were looking at LED boards.
Some heritage home look pretty, like,
Right, yeah,
or something, yeah.
and it was just the bulbs we were looking, right, see if they could get them at cost. Yeah.
So we'll have a sort of point. People would probably pay something for that, but they would be paid cost. Yeah. The more than the person.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right, let's do that.
All right.
So. Did Cindy list anything else under general business?
Under general business, the only other item that we have is item 8.3, birdhouse for Bruce Lepper. And I'm not sure which committee member would be speaking to that, or if it is Ms. Hyatt.
Yeah, I'm just gonna speak about that. So she didn't make any reference to the Dial Parquet.
I don't have any items. It could be, I'll just see if it's under your work plan. So item 10 on your work plan addresses Dial Parquet.
Oh,
And I'll just scroll in. So it looks like this is a subcommittee between Ms. Ellis and yourself. And the latest update we have is create verbiage for signage for the Springville and Ebenezer cemeteries. And the committee finalized the verbiage for the signage at the Dial Parkette, and staff are working on the signage design. Signage is being made. That is just page 25 of our agenda.
Okay, we'll block something here.
Something here.
Oh, okay, wait a minute.
You
Excuse me.
just look at it.
Right.
Were you looking for something different, or that was our update?
For a couple of things regarding the Dial Parkette.
So you can always let us know what you're looking for, and we can do a follow-up, and if it, depending, we'll either reach out just directly to provide the information, or we can bring it forward at the next meeting.
Well. got down, but- the- of course, the- and it's still there would come in. And I don't know quite what you think, but.
Did she leave it as an item for discussion number 10 in the work plan? Because we haven't technically kind of gotten off the work plan, we want to do it under that. Is it our sign that we're doing?
For where?
The signs for the Dale?
Part of it was, and I won't get into it right now, but just to let you know, part of it was the information sheet that we talked about doing last year that we didn't do regarding the names on the monuments.
That part of the QR code for the sign?
No,
Oh,
it was
okay.
separate. And the other thing is, I want to talk about is the Dial monument in particular and the cleaning of it. And the other thing is the signing,
Right,
which you and I can talk.
yeah, we've got that underway, yeah.
So can I talk about those things now?
Yeah, go ahead. Unfortunately, I may not be able to assist with all of it, but if you have
Yeah.
items, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
We were doing information sheet of the Dial Parkette. And I would give information about people on the head markers, who they were, and what they were, and et cetera, et cetera. What's happening is people are visiting the Parkette. They're asking questions about who these people are, where they're from, et cetera, and unfortunately, out of that, our nearby neighbor has become involved in coming across the street
He's the tour guide.
as a tour guide who knows nothing. And just
He's
looking.
I would,
We found that, and what I wanted to do was, she made 8.5 by 11, list the markers, so on, and then information. We had the information. Proposal that and
okay,
so we have all the information. It's
Yeah.
a matter of taking it and putting it together on sheet. Then what I was going to suggest we do is the trail. That they put their.
Pamphlet holders, yeah.
Take and put the keys in people and on the road, just please say. People could just pick one up and they can wander around and look. Do something and get further.
So we can provide the costing information. There would be a cost associated with purchasing the boxes and then work to do the post.
$3.
No, the weatherproof like pamphlet holders. I think it's a little bit more than that.
With this, with. Picture of it. And getting postered, make.
That's what I mean, could do that. You're not sure who these people are, these tourists. People.
I feel like they're
I mean, I think we could do that too, but I.
Or maybe that 8.5 by 11 becomes like a vistal print. Permanent sign, they can picture. That we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, you could do that too.
And I would be concerned about. People taking a pamphlet and then tossing.
Yeah.
That would be my concern. I do think a lot of people, to your comment, Deb, I think you're right, a lot of people maybe don't bring, but I think more people do bring the phone that they can't. So,
Yeah, that's true. I just want to hear it accessible. We're trying to make it accessible to everybody. You know, or there are folks, older folks, I will venture to say, there's the folks that don't, they can't. My dad, he would have first what to do when you get down there. I have to that. So, yeah.
And just looking for clarification, the signage that will be installed does not have this information.
no,
Okay.
but we could add it to the QR code because the sign that we have has the verbiage for that has been free. There's a QR code that goes with it that provides background information, and we can amend that to include whatever we need it to include. So I'm just wondering, is that the opportunity to do that? Is that, you know, and then we can always kind of provide that information to the neighbors to get that. Because I thought she doesn't know, like, she wouldn't know, so.
Give her the sheet, tell her number, and then she can go.
You know our neighbor.
Okay, so let's take it as a takeaway. I think you can continue to work with Miss Ellis on the signage as it's still being prepared, and when that goes in. And we can certainly do a takeaway to get some costing for the committee and the different alternatives, so you can consider it. And we'll just make a note and add it under number 10 here, so that it just continues to stay on your work plan.
Okay. The other thing, and I'm not happy with what they have done to it. They have cleaned it to the point where it is now pure white, top to bottom. And it is so white and so clean, it's lost all its definition in the construction of the monument. The copy on it is pure white on a white background, and you can hardly read it. Now, I don't know, because I wasn't involved in this thing in the beginning, what staff was told they were going to do as far as cleaning was concerned.
So I think that the monument cleaning is something that we do annually now. I think that was something that this page was taking the baton and running with it. How about we I know Cindy has a little bit more background with monument, but do you think it does fall under the clerk's department, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of some of the monuments,
Yeah.
not all of them?
When did they come? Is it recent?
Here.
And have they been back since or? Okay,
If proposed that they again get involved with cleaning, spring. Doesn't, it's just had, they were gonna clean other monuments.
restoration, okay.
What they. So this.
Okay,
It's marble. And it doesn't look, it looks like a piece of chalk sticking up in there.
okay, okay.
So I don't think they should do anything until we have a meeting. And we get all we can.
Okay, so why don't the takeaway be that we have a discussion with Cindy and yourself to go over what the deal is with that monument, if there's a way to fix it. And then before we move forward with any cleaning for further stones, does that make sense? Okay, does that work for you?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, and I do see the note here, and I will confirm that I think we were gonna review the other monuments before contracting, so we'll just make sure that no service takes place before we can have that conversation.
Yeah, okay.
We can probably take a look at IL too.
Yeah, well, I think that's what the chair is,
Yeah.
you're looking at.
We should also over because we're talking both further cleaning. Of the headstones here, plus over is Springville. Just don't want anything until we resolve what they have done.
Yeah, be so careful.
Yeah, okay. So we'll try to set something up.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Here it was. So is there anything else on work plan to discuss? And I would just, as far as a bird house to leopard wolf.
You need a motion? Or
No,
you
I
good?
think I'm okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you for checking. Go ahead.
So the bird house is and it's going into the garden area. For the right hand side, beside a couple of cedar trees. I've had lots of comments from emails, people think it's wonderful. And bird house, but where it is. So it's been always here. Where is it located? In land to the park. The community garden
Okay,
over at Dibble School.
And thank you, Peter, for doing, taking that in.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Ready?
It's the bird, what kind of bird is going here?
To think of something. It will take a bird as big as a bluebird. And of course it will take. One bird. There's 2 wolves in it now. And more can be added. But it was suggested that start was 2 because the birds can end up fighting each other. I said it was gonna be one hole.
They don't go condo, no. Condo than that, I don't,
You follow the streetscape design guidelines.
yeah.
Thank you again for doing that.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
So, any other comments that you wish to be or?
I just have a question. I've been noticing on the walks, there seem to be a lot of trees being cut down on older properties, and they're not the hydro trees, they're not those that are all looked up. They've got a problem. And do we actually have a forestry bylaw? Because if you're talking about a property designated, does it, can they just go in and pay down trees? Like, they're part of the natural heritage, right?
There are certain trees that no one can cut down, and one specifically that is example.
So I think
Yeah,
that's
they're-
a fair comment.
Mhm.
I believe each property and each circumstance is so unique that we would really, if you could contact the township, our building administrator to let them know if you do have a concern. And that goes for anyone, if you're noticing this or are concerned, we can work to identify was that approved by our public works department? Is it part of regular maintenance? Or if there is a concern, then that allows the township to be notified and investigate. But generally speaking, we couldn't say either way without knowing if it's a property or not.
Across from the college place at 15 King Street, there was a huge, was a white pine or whatever, that would be powered, well, like, species, but someone just came and cut it down. It was on the edge of a property and a driveway, and it did not look like, I'm not an arborist, so I don't, but, it didn't look like there was anything particular tree that, you know, endangering them. Decided, so, just one day, there's a big crew up there cutting it up and. I think that tree comes down, it's pretty stable, like it's been a while, it's not rotted out. And then I noticed the neighbor next door, to that one, that house, last week cut down a tree that was again looked pretty healthy. I walk by there every day, so I could see it. So maybe they rock at the middle of it, you know, they get various things, but I just feel like, okay, so. You know, if we're talking about property being designated as heritage, then, and we're talking about landscaping. What about trees? My question, I just question, you know, I walk around. Trees with bark, this blue or yellow, blue and red, whatever, the designated trees. And then work on errors and some people are trees cut down that are perfectly healthy and are not about it. But, yeah.
Yeah, it is a question for the public works. I certainly am not prepared to answer that.
Okay. Just wanted to know if we can, you know, a lot of municipalities talked about portable and code, they have 3 violence. That prevent you be taken down.
Yeah, I don't believe we have one. I know it's been something that has been up for discussion, but we don't have one right now. So,
Okay.
but that's kind of the only answer I can give you. It certainly for public works department to determine what they do, as Carly had alluded to, what their process is.
Yeah.
I know they you know, they're not bad guys. They don't deliberately cut down trees just for fun.
Stand that, you take it down, that was a way to go or whatever.
Yeah,
Some stuff.
yeah, so we can certainly try and dig into that a little bit more, find out what.
I'm just curious,
She asked me at the time, as a landscape architect, do I have any experience with tree violence? And I said, yeah, a lot of these companies that I worked with, and so I dumped her with, I don't know, 20 different bylaws from different municipalities. Said, here, glean from these what you will to help you with doing the bylaw. So I know that that process is in the works,
Okay,
but. Hopefully
Okay.
it's-
just curious, it's getting concerned, especially these few trees. Longer than me, so, you know, talking to it's coming down, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know after the storm, just on our street, not in another, in Peterborough.
Yeah.
There were 3 trees that were significant and they had to come down.
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't until the storm that, you know, we found that they were, it was dangerous, but it was a unique circumstance, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, big.
Yeah.
trees here and stuff.
Okay. Good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting adjourned.
mover.
Anybody like to second that?
Thank you. You know, in favor? Wonderful. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
He never can move that.
Just a moment. Well,
Feel like that old song.
just a moment here. Streaming.